Were women created to lead or to follow?
They were created to follow.
And would you
Man
ever
was
let,
responsible.
I'm
Man was
sorry?
responsible to submit to God, but there are many men that refuse to submit to God, and that the woman should not submit to a husband that's not submitted to God. That's what I believe.
And so, but she was not created to lead, she was created to follow, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think about men who allow women to be in their ministry and they be like praying over people, and they be laying on hands and doing all that? Are those
Mhm.
men wrong for allowing the woman to do that?
No, not as long as the woman is healed and delivered, then
But God
it,
never let a woman lay their hands on anybody.
well, you think about the people like Catherine Kuhlman and all the people that she got healed and delivered, and she was used extremely powerfully.
But Catherine never
Back at
heard anybody. She just pretended she did.
no, she did.
Where no, she did not. Not one soul.
There were many that got healed and delivered from Catherine
Women
Kuhlman's
cannot
ministry.
heal because that's not God's order.
No, but God uses them to, and that's what
Where did
Catherine
God
Kuhlman.
use women to heal?
Where,
Uh-huh.
when
Where? In the Bible, where is it that God used women to heal?
God will use anyone to
No,
heal.
where in the Bible did God use women to heal?
God will use um, a donkey
Where
and
in
have
the
the donkey
Bible did
speak to
God
correct.
where in the Bible did God use women to heal?
All I can say is from today, I have seen many women that have prayed for people and seen healings and
You've never
deliverances.
seen that. Where in the Bible does God use women to heal?
Well, there's lots of things in the Bible that aren't there, that it doesn't mean it's not true.
But where in the Bible
And
does
that
God use women to heal?
people are being used every day today, women specifically, to heal and deliver.
They're
It's
pretending
just
that she's healing.
true.
She's not. She doesn't have the authority. She doesn't have the power. God never changes his rule. The world is just weak. They're afraid of women. They're afraid to tell the woman, go sit down, you cannot heal. Why is that?
Because there's a lot of men that are misogynistic.
No, why is it that they're afraid to tell women they cannot heal?
Because it's not true.
But God never used women. How come it wasn't true then, but it's true now?
Well, it's true now.
But not by
And
God, though, right? It's man made. It's evil.
not evil for a
Yeah,
woman to be used in healing and deliverance.
right. Because it's not from God.
Yeah, it is from God.
No, it's not. Why you say that? God never used it. He never said it. He didn't give women permission to do that. How is it from God?
Because God's going to use anyone that's a willing vessel,
He never said that.
but he does.
Well, no, he didn't. Nowhere in the Bible we say, oh, okay, I'm going to use anybody to heal. Y'all don't want to do it. He never called a woman or used a woman for healing at all. He used them to wash the dishes and bring some food and all that, but but not to heal. But let me ask, why? What is wrong with you that you can't admit that women, God never used women to heal, not in the Bible anywhere. I know now God will use anything, but that's made up by men. Why can't you admit that God does not use women to heal? It's nowhere
Because
in the
I've seen
Bible
it.
or anywhere.
I have seen it. I got to look at his Catherine Coleman's ministry.
But why can't
Thousands
you
were
admit
healed.
that God didn't do that?
And
Because,
the reason that God used Catherine Coleman, because a man was not willing to pay the price to do what she was willing to do.
but that's not true.
Yeah, it is true.
But why can't you admit that God does not use women to heal?
He
And you
does.
know it's not in the
That's why.
Bible or anywhere. Why can't you admit it's not in the Bible?
There's lots of things that are not in the Bible. It doesn't mean that they're not true today.
Really? Amazing. Um, what's wrong with the blacks?
What? There's nothing wrong with blacks or any race. So
But what's wrong with the black?
nothing's wrong.
Why they're so
Everyone needs healed.
angry?
Everyone delivered.
Why are they so angry and they blame white people for everything? They attack white
They need their soul
people.
wounds healed.
I'm
They need their
sorry?
soul wounds.
What?
They need their soul wounds healed.
Right. And so, how do you feel about the attack upon white men by the blacks and others?
Everyone needs healed of their wounds and delivered of their demons, and then they can love like Christ.
And do you
That
love
would
white
answer.
people?
What?
Do you love white people?
I love all people.
How about white people?
Of course.
Would you ever follow a woman?
Would I follow a woman?
Yes.
Yeah, if she was anointed by the Lord, I definitely would.
So you would follow a woman.
Yeah.
Did Christ ever follow a woman?
That's was not allowed by the Pharisees and scribes of his day. It was not allowed. So no, he did not.
And so if Christ didn't do it, why would you do it?
Because Christ didn't follow a man either.
No, if Christ, and you're right about that, but if Christ didn't follow a woman, why would you do it?
Because if they're anointed and they're being used by the Lord,
That doesn't exist though.
and that's why.
Did you vote for the Great White Hope?
I voted for Trump, yes.
Right on, man. I love the Great White Hope. That's amazing, huh?
Yes, yes, it is.
God said that every time the man listened to the woman, he will suffer. So would you ever listen to a woman?
Sure.
You would?
Yes.
But you're going to suffer.
Not if she's healed and delivered and she's
That doesn't
anointed.
exist. Right?
I didn't hear what you said.
That does not exist because a woman who has truly overcome evil and returned to her father would never want a man to listen to her. She would love her position as being under the man and not above the man.
Yeah, well, it's best to have both husband and wife submit to the Lord, and then they submit to one another. The Bible says that.
No, but the woman's supposed to commit to the husband, and the husband submit to the man. I mean, to God, right?
I mean, you look at your spouse as a helpmate, and I listen and value, my wife. She's very
Does she
valuable.
obey you?
I don't I don't require her, I guess, to obey, but there are decisions that we both make, and I trust her and she trusts me. So
So does she obey you?
she doesn't disobey.
Does she
I don't
obey?
disobey her, but there might be some decisions that we might disagree on.
Right.
No big deal.
So does she obey you?
She doesn't disobey.
And so does she obey?
I don't require her to.
And so does she obey?
Next question.